Okay, I'm gonna try a couple of things new here. Let's see if I can't put together a decent video. As I mentioned at the Zoom meeting this morning, I've been looking at Venice for a video, it's more so than just showing Venice. I'm trying to find a way to make a decent looking video, as well as integrate maybe some slides or something along with just my flight simulator to get the picture across better. So I'm going to try some things here. They may work, they may not. We'll see. Let's start the video. That's the good question. I believe I did. Okay, I can't remember whether I started the video. We'll see. Anyway, we're over an airport. It's called Marco Polo Airport, and it's where you would fly into if you're going to Venice. Now, when you go to Venice, or when you fly into Venice, if you're like I was back in 1984, I was really surprised that when I landed, I didn't see any canals. I didn't see anything. We were on land. And come to find out that Venice isn't on the mainland. Venice is off to the offshore about a mile or so. And that's where all the canals are now. If you look at my mouse over here, this is Venice itself. And this is the airport. So when you fly into to go to Venice, you land here. Then you get on a bus and you go down the coastline here to a bridge that you can't quite see yet, but we'll fly over it. And you take that bridge over to Marco Island, or more likely, because there's no place for cars on Marco Island to speak of, instead of trying to drive across, you get a water taxi, a boat that takes you across this bay inlet here to Venice, and you find out that those water taxis are the main source of transportation on the island because there's very little space for cars, if any. Although the bridge does allow for cars to go over, it also allows for the railroad. So I'm going to start this video, and we're going to talk about some things, and I'm going to try to add some things in the middle. Okay, so here we are heading down. Like I say, we've landed. Forget that we're in the air right now. I'm just trying to show you some scenery. I'm heading to where you would go now from the airport on a bus to catch a water boat, or I keep wanting to say water boat, water taxi over to Venice. And it's right down here where you see this crossing here. Now, Microsoft graphics are kind of funny. To save on memory, things appear as you get closer. Sometimes you can't see them until you get closer, then they suddenly appear. That way you don't have to store it on your computer. So we're heading toward this bridge that I was telling you about, but we're not going to, if you were here, you wouldn't be driving across the bridge. When I was here in 1984, there was no such bridge. So you had to take the water taxi. At any rate, we're coming up on that now. And as I said, that bridge also is a dual bridge. It's an auto bridge, but it also has a railroad bridge underneath or to the side. So if you come by train, like from Rome, you would just go right directly across that railroad bridge and wind up right in the middle of, of Venice at the train station. There's a train station right at the very end of this bridge when you get across. Okay, so we're going to just scoot across there in a minute. Might as well start cutting over now. And by the way, the plane we're flying today is an Icon A5. Thanks to Bob, who told me that, even though it was written on the wing. I didn't know what the plane was that I was flying. This is a dual purpose plane. If you leave the gear down, you can land on land. If you pull the gear up, these are pontoons, you can land on water. And the propeller is in the back of the wing so that you get water spray won't, knock it out. At any rate, let's start coming up to the bridge down. I'm going to go a little lower now so we can see some things. And this is what you think about when you think about Venice. This is the Venice. It's an island, really bifurcated island. There's all kind of canals all over the place. and canals and little bridges going across the canals. And it's a beautiful place to see, a little bit expensive, beautiful to see. Okay, as you can see, right where my mouse is, the railroad part of this bridge comes right across here and goes right into the train station, which is right, the train station is right there. If you're by car, you go here, and I don't know where you park, but you can take a car at least this far. If you come by boat, all the ocean liners park in this area right here. And they're huge boats, and even the major canal, which is called the Grand Canal, these boats will barely fit into them. So they dock out here in the major part of the tourist areas to the left. But sometimes they'll take one of these boats, it's really kind of funny, and actually sail it down this canal that I'm going to show you, the Grand Canal. And it takes up most of the canal, so that when you're down here where the hotels are, someday you look out a window and you see a boat like this that you can almost touch. You could at least hit it with a baseball. And anyway, here we come. We're coming down the Grand Canal. And the hotel areas are right here. Now, this is St. Mark's Square. It's got a cathedral there. And of course, the tower. And that's what you always see when you see Venice. This is the major part where there's a big plaza and everything else. Now I'm going to go down lower, and I'm going to stop it when we get right about here, because I want to show you something. Okay, if you look over here, this, as I said, is St. Mark's Square. Inside here is a big courtyard. There are lots of open air restaurants, tables open in the open air, waiters who all are tenors who sing Italian songs while they're serving you. There's usually a string or two ensemble, or even sometimes a whole orchestra playing music. There's 1,000 pigeons playing bombardier, so you watch out for that. And there's all sorts of gift shops as well as restaurants inside that square, and that's the major hub of activity here in Venice. The most expensive hotels are right here along the Grand Canal, and the first one consists of 4 or 5 buildings. I can't remember how many are actually one hotel, but they're all different buildings. And this is called this is a hotel where we stayed. It's called the Danieli, Danieli. It looks like crud from the outside, but it's a magnificent hotel inside and just as expensive as can be. When I was here in 1984, a room was $400 a night, but you got a magnificent room, uh, sometimes suites, etc. And also, I'm going to zoom in a little further. Now, of course, that distorts the graphics a little bit. But right up here is a really fancy restaurant. It sits out in a balcony, and you could overlook the channel or the Grand Canal, and your view looks something like this all the way around. And you're seeing that as you dine on a white tablecloth, very fancy restaurant, very fancy prices. Everything's expensive here. And this is where we stayed. We loved it. It was great. Now, I'm going to go forward just a little bit more, and then I'll stop it again. Okay. Also, right along here is where all the gondolas are. And when you come by boat from the airport, the boat pulls up right here. The taxi boat pulls up right here, and you drop your bags off, and the porter comes in and takes it into the hotel. And again, this is the restaurant. You can see a little better here. Now I'm going to try something to show you a little better what it looks like. If I can pull this off. Okay, just to recap, here's the airport that I showed you. Here's the bridge that we just came across. And here's the canal that we're on right now. And right here is St. Mark's Basilica and Square. And we're sitting right about here. This is a better view of what the hotel looks like. This is the main building, but there are actually 4 buildings that all belong to the hotel. Here's the restaurant that I told you about. And then over to the east, or I'm sorry, to the west, to the left here, is St. Mark's Square. Here's a better look of it. These all are part of the same hotel. Here's where the gondolas park and the water taxis. There's a couple places that they can just pull in to unload your baggage, etc. And then here's St. Mark's again. In that restaurant, or upstairs in that restaurant, I'm sorry this is blurred, but it gives you at least an idea. Is a nice area, white tablecloth, very fancy restaurant, very fancy prices, where you can have breakfast or you could have dinner. And in the evening, when the sun is going down and you see all this beautiful scenery and watch all the activity below and watch all the gondolas and the boats flipping around, especially if one of the big liners comes down, it's a sight to behold. And then around the corner, this is just again to the west of where we were sitting in that restaurant. You can see St. Mark's Square. That's the entrance to it, but it's a big square within those confines. There's the St. Mark's Tower. This is the Basilica. Okay, I think that's all I've got to show you from there. So let's go back to the original. And let's take the flight a little bit further and show you some of the. There's really not much to see as far as sightseeing. That the area that we're in right now is where most of the activity is. But I'll go up a little higher and you can see the way everything is just nothing but canals and bridges all over the whole island. Now there is an airport here if you've got a little light airplane of your own. Up here on this peninsula, there's a little grass strip that I'll show you. And it's I think it's only about 4,000 or 5,000 feet long. And it's got a little terminal there. So, I mean, you've got some services if you have your own airplane, but most people come in by boat, plane, or train. And if you come by plane, you're going to have to go to the big airport back on the mainland and then take the boat over here. Here's the strip that I was telling you about that you can land on. Okay, we're going to head on back, look a little bit more at the scenery. I don't know what's on these other islands. Most of them are just I won't say uninhabited, but they're not the tourist area. Everything takes place here in Venice itself. I'll fly over St. Mark's so you can get an idea of what the plaza looks like. It's pretty big. We'll go down a little bit lower. And I don't know how many bridges there are crossing these canals all across the place, but there's a lot of bridges. And here's the hotel that we were at. And again, here's the plaza. I don't know what the name of this particular structure is. I can't remember. I think it's some sort of a temple or something. And then this island over here, or I guess down here, is called the Lido, Lido, and you have to go by boat to get there again. But they've got beaches and a casino and some things like that if you want to gamble. Very pristine waters to swim in, from what I hear. We didn't go down there. And we'll take one more pass and we'll call this quits. But this should give you some idea of what you get to when you get to Venice, because it's a fascinating city. I think it's the most beautiful place I've ever been myself. When you come into town and get off that boat from the airplane and park right there and then start wandering around the city, it's just gorgeous. And with that happy note, there's the airport over yonder. And it's funny, you can see snow-capped mountains off in the distance. I guess those are the Swiss Alps. We're pretty close to northern Italy and the Swiss Alps. But you see some of these canals are pretty big, others are pretty small. You can barely get a gondola across them, but these guys are great with those gondolas. You don't see very many places for cars. I don't know why they even have cars come over, but that's what they do. Okay, I'm going to call it quits here. See how this thing turned out.